Welcome to Why I Quit, a show that covers real people quitting their 9-to-5 jobs in search of something different. Listen to inspiring conversations where we dive deep into the stories of why people quit their jobs, what were the hardest parts, where are they now, and any advice for people following the same path. I am so excited to introduce Amanda Mottola as this week's guest on Why I Quit. Listen to Amanda discuss her adoption and the impact of finding her birth family in Paraguay. Learn how this led to her quitting her job, getting into politics, and eventually starting her own business. Get inspired listening to her speak about finding her passion and leaving a legacy for her children. Hey Amanda, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you on. I'm excited to hear a little bit about your background. So could you start off and tell me a little bit about where you come from?
So I was actually born in Asunción, Paraguay. It is in the heart of South America, and I was adopted right after the Stroessner dictatorship ended and brought to the United States by my lovely family that I grew up in Milford, Connecticut. Yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy ride, and my adoption and where I come from is a huge part of why I'm here and all the crazy things that I have going on right now in my life.
Growing up, did you have any idea of what you thought, your career would be after college, or any specific goals like that? Or what did that look like for you?
Sure. So to be honest, you would think that it might have shaped that like entrepreneurial spirit or helped kind of cultivate it. But really going through school and going through college, I was programmed to think that I needed to get a 9-to-5 job to be successful, and that I had to kind of get on this hamster wheel that so many other people go on. And every job I had, I worked at some great companies. There was something missing, and I just felt this void in my heart and my mind. And I even at one point contemplated throwing this, the marketing world down the drain and just going back to school to be a teacher. Because I felt like, well, maybe the philanthropic side of me isn't feeling fulfilled because I'm not doing enough to help other people, because that's always been very important to me because of where I come from. And I even got to the point where I was applying. And then I got pregnant. My husband and I, were just kind of looking into our future. And I had gone to South America to find my birth family in 2015. And that was a life-changing trip. I went to 2 different countries and found 9 aunts and uncles and 5 younger siblings. And my family down there is, by no means wealthy. So I was able to see just where I could be and what my life could be and the lack of opportunity. So I came back to the U.S. I got involved in politics. I was at that time on the board of directors of 2 nonprofits. And I wanted to give. So I went through that whole process. I started my LLC because more and more the thought of working for myself and creating my own legacy and future on my own terms became very prominent, because I guess I have a chip on my shoulder, knowing where I come from and knowing that a lot of adoptees that I interact with are unhappy in their lives and haven't kind of come to terms and accepted like their place in this world, and not only accepted but thrived from where they've come from. I feel that it is my duty to other adoptees, to the people in South America that aren't here, to take hold of the opportunity that I've been blessed with and do more with my life. So I always feel that I'm needing to continue following my passion, because not only I deserve it, but those that can't do what I'm doing, like I need to do it for them.
I want to go back to a little bit with your first job or your first couple jobs. You mentioned that there was something missing. Was it very quickly that you figured that out, or was it, after a year, a couple years of working there, that you really knew something needed to change?
After college, I did a temp job, which I did not like. I was a sales assistant, and I felt like an indentured servant. I was being bossed around. I was just constantly being told what to do and that I wasn't doing things right. And it was just very demoralizing. And I just remember thinking to myself, never again will I work in a role like this and subject myself to the toxicity of being treated this way. So that was a learning lesson. I've had a lot of learning lessons in the corporate world and in my career that I've taken with me into my own business. But, you know, before I started my own business, I had good jobs, right? They were good, but there was good and bad within it. And I would just take mental notes of, either poor management or lack of organization or, different things, good and bad with the infrastructure. And I would just kind of mentally process it and obviously go about my job, do the best I could. But I knew that I wanted to be doing more than what I was doing. Not necessarily work-wise or time-wise, but my current organization is considered a social enterprise because giving back is a big part of our mission. Even though we're a for-profit business, I like to be involved with youth and especially at-risk youth and doing things that help uplift the community as a whole. And I feel as though, not necessarily the businesses that I've worked at, but some businesses I've seen do things as more of a facade, not actually because it's really the core part of what they believe. It's more so for like that PR little stint. And I don't like that. And being able to have control over where the money goes from our business and the clients that we work with, having that power to me is very important. And I didn't realize that until I have kind of been in this position. And to have that ability to choose is really amazing. And that's what I was missing all those years, is that, and not necessarily the control, but the ability to have that freedom in selecting the trajectory of like the future and who we engage with and don't engage with.
Was there a specific moment, or was there something for you that, really helped you kind of get over that barrier and make the leap?
It wasn't my choice, right? So I left a job when I was pregnant because I hit the ceiling. And that's another good indicator that you're in the wrong position, is when feel like you're treading water and you're not getting anywhere. And you see the shore and you're just like, I know what I want to do. I know where I want to be, but I just can't seem to get there. And I've hit that ceiling at every job I've had and just felt like I was treading water. And I made the switch. I started doing some research and seeing what was available. And I took kind of a leap of faith and I left a job while I was pregnant, which is kind of scary because I had benefits, I had paid maternity leave, I had all these nice, comfortable things. But when I left, I can't tell you the weight that was lifted from my shoulders. And I went to a position that was a little bit closer to my house. So that's why I was thinking, I could see the baby more. And I was picturing the future at this place. And I would have stayed there because my brain was programmed to think that I needed to climb this corporate ladder to be successful, because success is being president, success is being SVP or whatever it may be within someone else's company. So I would have stayed at this business had they had a mass layoff. But that was the biggest blessing in disguise for me, even though it was very depressing at the time because I just was about to have a baby. I found out I was being laid off. My husband was working in a different state. I had all these things just kind of compounding that were seemingly negative things. But I knew from that moment when I got laid off that this is my time. I had this LLC that was just collecting dust. And I had it because I knew I wanted to be there. But the treading water, I was just so tired. And I was so tired to work on it after hours because I'd, busted my butt all day at my job. I was getting that biweekly paycheck and felt so shackled to it, but also slightly empowered by it because I felt comfortable and secure. And I felt frivolous for deviating from, the societal norm plan of climbing that corporate ladder and getting off because, I was looking down and thinking like, oh, what the heck is there for me? Like, there's no security there. But when I was laid off, any illusion of like the corporate security and working for someone else just dissipated. And from that moment on, I said, there's nothing secure about this. What is secure is that I don't want a cap on myself. I don't want to hit a ceiling. And the only way to not have to experience that ever again is to work for myself and have my own business where I craft it in a way that is good for everyone that's involved, good for the community. And I'm making choices that not only benefit my family, myself, and those, around me and my clients, but in my mind, the world, because I'm doing things where I'm giving back to different causes and really using my business as a platform for good.
No, that's great. And something that comes up on every episode is people talking about like their expectations versus reality of the first year of running your own business. Talk to me a little bit about what that was like for you.
Oh gosh. So it was a grind. I moved to Rhode Island. My husband and I were apart for a year. He took a job when I took the new job, but his is in a different state and the commute just wasn't happening. So he stayed in Rhode Island Monday through Friday. I stayed in Connecticut. And then I had the baby, so I was in Connecticut with the baby Monday through Friday and no longer a job, so that was fun. And I decided a month after I had my C-section that I was going to take my LLC and I was going to do this. I told my husband, I said, listen, you're in Rhode Island, you're the breadwinner, like, thank God, I appreciate you. But I said, I'm not going back. I took one look at my son and I said, never again will I risk being bullied in a workplace. Never again will I risk being laid off or having any of these things happen to me. And I said, now have this focus where my son is who I'm doing this for. And failure is not an option. And I keep telling my husband that even when like things get tough or, the first 2 years like didn't make much. And I just said to him, I go, failure is not an option. This is for our kids. And this is it for me. There's no going back. Like the idea of working for someone else again is the farthest thing from my mind. It is a grind. It really is. I started during 2020. I was new in Rhode Island, didn't have a network here. And February rolls around. I joined a BNI, which has been phenomenal for me. It's been 50% of my revenue the last 2 years. And I just networked like it was my job. I consider myself to be a master connector. I'm always connecting my clients with people. I like to have a guy or two in every single industry. So I've learned a wealth of knowledge about all different jobs, from injection molding to, gosh, you name it, I probably could tell you something about it. I'm always able to connect people with other people, and that's because during 2020, I took that year. I didn't take that year off, right? I pounded the pavement from my basement. I talked to probably, 10 new people a week, maybe more. And I just made a point that initially I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I was taking anyone and everyone, just trying to get clients. I was in that just grind mode, survival mode, which I feel like a lot of businesses start doing that because you're just trying to get your feet wet and figure things out. I don't necessarily recommend that, right? Because I wasted a lot of time. But I also created this phenomenal network in Rhode Island. And now it's at the point in my business where each day referrals just come in organically. And I do nothing to earn them other than the time I spent in 2020 letting people get to know me and breaking through that, like, superficial BS and, just how's the weather. And we really got into knowing each other, learning about each other's families, our lives, where I'm going with this business. And that was a lot of time and effort that I don't feel ultimately was wasted.
What have been some of the most impactful things that you've been able to do that's helped you grow the business over the past couple of years?
One of the biggest things has been keeping my mouth shut and listening, right? I've had instances where I've expressed things, to people higher up, like the chain of command, and not been heard. And ultimately, that was like the nail in the coffin when I left places, was that I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel that my opinion mattered. I've taken that not only with, some of the contractors that I work with, but also my clients, and really not assuming I know what they want and need. I want to hear them out first and really get to know them, their goals, their fears, everything with their business, so I can really give them the ultimate service and the ultimate connection and the ultimate, products essentially that they need based on all of that.
As you are growing the business, you have a family as well. What does work-life balance look like for you?
That's feel like a loaded question. Yeah, I have 2 little ones. I started my business when my son was 2 months old, and he pretty much grew up with my business. And he's 3 years old, and now he's selling me his dinosaurs for $1 million. He makes an allowance of $2 a week for putting away groceries, and he's a rock star at it. And he also talks about customers and clients and deals and vendors. And it's pretty phenomenal, the vocab that he has. I try to always remember he's looking at everything I do, and he's listening to everything I say. So trying to be very cautious with overworking, because I am a little bit of a chronic workaholic. And it's hard. When you love what you do, it's not work. So you can sometimes blur the lines, especially when you're working from home, which many entrepreneurs are working, from their home. Work-life balance can get very distorted fast and very unregulated if you let it. So what I have found works the best, I refer to as a work-life rhythm. I don't like work-life balance because I never feel as though your family should come secondary to anything else. For me, family is everything. And I don't know if it's because I'm adopted or the things that I've experienced, but for me, family literally is everything. And I never want my work to taint that or take away from that. However, there's a little bit of a caveat, because sometimes work's demanding, right? Sometimes family's demanding. So there's ebbs and flows. It's not so much a balance, right? Because a balance, you keep balanced. Family and work, as far as I'm concerned, should never be balanced. So a work-life rhythm, sometimes work, you have a big deal coming up that you need to close. Work's going to be a little bit, weighted a little bit heavier at that time because you need to give more to it. And family might have to take a little bit of a back burner. But as soon as that work obligation is over, family should pop right back up. And that's how I structure my workload. Fridays, I typically take off to take my son to the zoo. And I did that almost every Friday of last fall. I feel as though when you set a certain precedent for yourself and for others, people just kind of follow suit. I mean, as long as it's not harming or doing anything bad. And in this case, people, I think, are actually jealous that I get to spend so much quality, meaningful time with my kids and run a business. So it's kind of like having your cake and eating it too. And it's taken me time to figure it out. At first, it was not like that, I just feel as though you can have it all, right? Some people say you can't. You can't have it all in the same moment, but you could work into your schedule pieces of what you want, so that way your life feels whole.
There's definitely been a theme that's been coming through in this entire conversation. I think it goes back to, you were talking about earlier with going down and finding your family. And talk to me a little bit about, the impact of that trip and how that has kind of resonated through, the different jobs you have, starting your own business and, raising a family and all of those things.
I made the decision in 2012 that I was going to go. I started this thing called Sports Chat Fanatic. I was interviewing NFL players in college. I wanted to work for the NFL. I loved the Pittsburgh Steelers so much. And I just thought it'd be cool to be like the next Aaron Andrews. So I was just committed. I made this makeshift little studio in my dorm. It was so rink-a-dink. It was funny. And I had a couple thousand followers, and I got interviewed on a Tennessee sports radio show about the Steelers. And it was just a ton of fun. And then one day it dawned on me that it wasn't fulfilling. I was having fun, but it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. And I kept that just kept going off in my brain like an alarm. I said, I need to be blogging about my adoption. So I started doing that. It was more therapeutic for me. I met some cool people who were adopted. I connected. I said, in 2014, I'm going to go down to South America and find my family. And I just wrote it down. I started telling everyone. I had graduated from school. Loans started kicking in. I was aimlessly going around from job to job. And I think ultimately I knew it wouldn't be that easy, but I didn't think it would be as hard as it was to find my path. And I kept telling myself, this isn't forever. This isn't forever. This isn't where I'm supposed to be. But I'm learning different things I learned all about retail. I learned all about management. I learned all these different things. And it was kind of a culmination to what I'm doing now. And I've merged it all, good and bad, into what I've got going on now. But the Paraguay trip was huge because that was one of the first like really big times where I committed to something that was so scary and that I've ultimately put off talking about most of my life because I didn't know what waited me on the other side of the door. And for some people I know, they found out their parents were no longer alive. They found out that they had paper moms because after the Strasser dictatorship, there was a lot of human trafficking of babies from the late 80s to the early 90s because, you know, after his regime ended, there was just a lot of room for corruption and profiting off of human life. So several friends of mine ended up going back and they found paper mothers. So they were never able to find, you know, the end to their story because they hit like a dead end essentially. And I was fortunate that my birth mother ended up being in Argentina, and we ended up finding my biological grandfather, some of my cousins, and my aunt outside of Asuncion. So that was an amazing trip. I funded it because I was a broke college kid at this point, post-college grad, and loans had kicked in. So I had told everyone I was going. I just didn't know how the heck I was paying to get there because I have too much pride to ask people for money. So I did the next best thing, which was asking people for their recyclables because I lived in Connecticut and I could get 5 cents a pop for every soda, water, you name it. So I started collecting. The Hunter ambulance crew up in Meriden, I believe, they would literally bring like a truck full, or an ambulance full, I guess, of bottles. They would bring these to me, and my now husband and boyfriend, we lived in a small apartment. So our apartment was filled with these like used bottles, and I'm pretty sure he hated my guts because he almost tripped and like killed himself a couple times. But that's how I funded my trip. I met a ton of new people through that experience. The ambassador of Paraguay saw my article. There's a local article done about my journey and funding with recycled water bottles. So he saw it down in DC. So he called the newspaper, got my number, called me, and helped me get dual citizenship. And then he picked us up from the airport when we got down to Asuncion. My phone rang, and it was a weird number. So I let it go to voicemail, and I listened to the voicemail, and I said, "Hello, my name is Fernando. I'm the ambassador of Paraguay. I'm down in DC." And I'm like, all right, scammer. Like, my brain, immediately it was just like, yeah, he's full of it, and I'm Oprah Winfrey. You know, like, I was like, there's no way. There's zero way that this is reality. And I Googled his name, and I go, oh my gosh. I think that was actually the ambassador. So I called him back. We chatted. He wanted to be a part of my journey and help me. So it was an amazing experience. I saw extreme poverty. When we had gone, it was during the rainy season. So every year, there's, thousands upon thousands of people that are removed from their homes because the water floods. So people have to move away from their little shacks in their homes, and it's just a cycle, and it's not really sanitary or safe for them to be in. But then afterwards they have to go back down to where they were when the waters go down. And I just saw a lot of things that just made me very sad. I saw indigenous women with like their little papooses with babies that were just begging on the street corner because deforestation is also an issue down there. You know, it really struck a chord because I saw where I come from, which was amazing, but I also saw where I could be. And all I kept thinking was, you know, that person on the street, maybe they just didn't get adopted, you know, or maybe they don't have parents, or, you know, they didn't choose the life that they have. And I feel like I hit the lottery, you know, not only in the family that I have, but also where I'm living. Because being in the United States and being an entrepreneur, because I feel like a lot of people that are entrepreneurs, like, you're just born with it to some extent. I wouldn't have been able to do like a quarter of what I've done here down there. Like when you're born poor, you die poor down there. There's no nonprofit helping you out. There's none of that. It's just, you're really stuck in like a perpetual cycle. But here I feel as though you can start from the bottom and make it to the top. There's so many rags to riches stories like that. Actually, my buddy Damon John here, he sits at my desk here. I met him before. Cool guy. But, he was a rags to riches story. There's so many scenarios in the U.S. where people start from nothing and they become, these amazingly successful people. And down there, I feel like it's just not an option. So that for me was a reality check in gratitude and knowing that I need to be more appreciative with what I have going on and the cards that I've been dealt, and do the most I can with them, because others were not dealt those same cards, and others will never have the chance to run for a political position, to do any of these things. Not necessarily because they don't want to, because they don't have the resources to know how to. So that's why I came back and I ran for a political position, because I just felt so compelled to do more. Even though at the time I was already volunteering and doing things, I needed to do something bigger and better. And I felt as though other people weren't stepping up, because it's a lot of work. I don't know if I'd get in politics again, because it's very divisive. It's very exhausting, but it's needed. We need good people to get involved, to care about what's going on. And I feel like we've come so far. I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but we've come so far as Americans from why our families all immigrated here. I know I'm a first generation, so I have maybe a little bit more in tune with that knowledge of where we could be, but all of us, like none of us are, from here unless you're an Indian. And I think we've gotten so far from that knowledge of how hard our ancestors fought to be here, or why they came here, whether it was for religious persecution or whatever the case may be. In my book, a gentleman I interviewed, and he came here from Ecuador. He paid the coyotes to help him. And it took him, I believe it was 24 days to get here. And he was telling me that at one point, there was like 4 days where he's in the desert, and he literally thought he was going to die. He literally wasn't getting like food and water. He was scared, but all he could think of was, there's nothing back there left for me. I have no future. He's an entrepreneur too. He goes, I have no future. The United States for me is the American dream, or a shot at the American dream. If I continue on this journey and make it, I have a chance at the American dream. And he kept reminding himself that that was the case. And he said, when there's something you want so badly, you'll be willing to die for it. And I feel as though that we've lost that sense of, I guess, fear in not being alive, and we don't have to fear death for something like that, for like a bigger purpose or getting to that dream job we want. Because when we're here, like, we have the safety, we have security, we have all these nice things that distract us from our bigger purposes in life, or going up the ladder, right? That the proverbial ladder that we're programmed to think like, oh, this is success. When you go up this ladder, you get to the top. Because I've met people, that are high up, and they're not necessarily happy, right? And a gentleman I know that does coaching works with high-performing individuals, and a lot of them aren't happy. They get to the top and they think, well, is this really what it's all about? So the whole passion thing, I think, is so important, and that's what I really cultivated while I was down in South America. I reignited my passion for life and my passion for helping others, and it really helped me hone in and fine-tune what the next steps, I call it my yellow brick road, what that yellow brick road looks like to get to where I want to go and why I'm doing it. And it's not about me. It's about the legacy for my family, because I know I'm not here forever. And I mean, hopefully I'm here for a longer time, because I want to see my boys get married and do all the fun things that they will do in their life. But I know that I might not be. So I'm trying to craft a life that I can pass down to them, that my family can live through and off of my resources when I'm gone.
I'm curious, based on all of your experiences, kind of getting into politics, starting your own business, you have a lot of different things going on. What are you most excited about or most interested in the next 3 to 5 years?
That's a loaded question too. So the book I'm pumped about because the book talks a lot about my life philosophies. It's called Learning as a Lifelong Journey, Being Your Leader, Overcoming Your Fears, and Succeeding in Your Career. So it's really a self-help, motivational leadership book. Whether you're trying to run your own business or trying to just take control of your life and find that passion and joy so you can lead a fulfilling life, whether that's working for someone else, whether that's, starting your own thing, being a stay-at-home mom, whatever it may be, I feel like being a leader is so important. Being a leader of your own life, right? Because if someone else is leading your life, it's not really, how could it be a fulfilling life? So I'm most excited about the book because I'm using that as a tool to bring on more coaching clients so that I can help them pretty much not live the life I'm living, but live the life they want to live through some of the tools and tricks I have up my sleeve to help them get there and help them get there faster. And I also had my first paid speaking engagement for my book, and that was a ton of fun. So I'm looking to get more into the speaking coaching and just sharing, the good word that I put in my book to help people, to help uplift them. Because the last 2 years has been just I can't even tell you what the last 2 years have been, but emotional destruction is what comes to mind. Sounds harsh, but I feel like COVID has just destroyed a lot of people's psyche and morale for life because it just put things on pause. And it really, the obesity is higher now in so many people. Mental health isn't great. I have had a couple friends in the past few years that, that took their own lives. And it's a real thing. It's depression, anxiety, all things that I've felt personally. They don't go away, right? Those are things that people are constantly battling with. And I am hoping that through the book, I can use this platform that I'm creating to just help show people that there's ebbs and flows in life. There's dark and bright periods, but from darkness, there always comes light. You just have to kind of get through the tunnel and get there. And there's because we're in the US, there's an infinite number of resources out there. And I want to destigmatize the stigma around mental health and seeking out marriage counselors or, various forms of therapy, Reiki, whatever you're feeling. I think it's important for it to be acknowledged and accepted and used as an opportunity for growth, not to kind of stalemate yourself and not would say give up, but just stop fighting for your vision and your goal. Because if something like that gentleman said, if it's worth fighting for, he was literally willing to die for his dream. And I think that if you switch your mindset to think that, is this so important to me that I'd be willing to die for it? Is this, purpose in my life? Is this why? Would I be willing to die for this? For my sons, hands down, I would jump in front of 1,000,000 bullets for them because they are that important to me. And I think that when you find something you are so passionate about, I'm so passionate about helping people through my marketing agency, through my book, that, I do feel that way about the things that I'm creating. And I think that's when you find your true passion, is when you can hands down say, something as intense and dramatic as, I would die for this. I would die a happy camper knowing that I've created this legacy, right? And I just want to help other people get to that place where they can feel that.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate your time, and this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. It really means a lot to us. We want to hear from you as we keep growing. Please reach out on whyquit.co if you have any feedback or potential guests. A special thanks to Chris Dole for the music. Please check out his newest album, Here's to You, on Spotify. Thank you, and we will be back next week with another episode.